Mercer Mayer, children's book author and illustrator. The early years. Mercer Mayer was born on December 30th, 1943 in Little Rock, Arkansas. He lived on a Navy missile base that was surrounded by swampland. He loved to explore the swamp, chasing and catching lizards and other creatures. Many of his books about swamps and the woods were inspired by his time as a child in Arkansas. The Big Move. Mercer's father served in the Navy during World War II. He was a war baby, and that meant many of his influences did not come from books or movies. Mercer can only remember reading one book as a child, Uncle Wiggily, but he may have also read Peter Pan. Mercer did not discover children's pictures books until he was much older. When Mercer was 13 years old, his family settled down in Honolulu, Hawaii. Humble beginnings. Mercer had dreamed of becoming an astronaut. Those dreams were crushed when he failed his high school physics class. Upon graduating from Theodore Roosevelt High School, he and his mother were commissioned to decorate the walls of the Kalaha Hilton Hotel with collage wall panels. He also earned extra money by drawing cartoons for the International Brotherhood of Teamsters in Honolulu. The Art Students League of New York. Eventually he began taking classes at the Honolulu Academy of Arts. It was there that Mercer decided he wanted to be an illustrator. His professors tried to talk him out of it because they didn't think he would be able to make a living of it. Against the advice of his professors, he moved to New York City in 1964 to pursue his dream. He continued his education at the Art Students League in New York City. Once in New York. He began creating his portfolio and taking it around to editors. Things used to be different. There was no need to make appointments. Editors would see anyone who walked in the door. Mercer encountered an art director who told him he should throw his portfolio out. Even though his feelings were hurt, he became more focused. He worked on perfecting his technique and improving his skills, creating a new portfolio filled with sketches from his childhood. Downtime. Mercer struggled with finding anyone who was interested in his sketches, especially without a story to accompany them. While at Dow, he met an editor who suggested that he write his own story to go with his illustrations. Mercer thought she was crazy. He never thought of himself as an author, and he didn't think he had any good story ideas. She suggested he write about his life. While working on his own book, he stayed busy by illustrating books for other authors. Wordless books. Mercer worked very hard on his first book, but just could not find the words. He decided he would try sketching out the story first. He soon realized that he had told a story through pictures. He took it back to the editor and said, "Here is my book, but I'm sorry, there are no words." She told him that that was even better, and Mercer's first book, A Boy, a Dog, and a Frog, was released in 1967 by Dial. The book went on to become one of the first titles in the wordless picture book form. Mercer is considered by many as one of the creators of the wordless form. What Nightmares Are Made Of. About a year later, in 1968, Mercer released his second book titled There's a Nightmare in My Closet, also published by Dial. Many critics compared his book to Where the Wild Things Are by Maurice Sendak. The critics were not kind in their reviews, but all of their coverage of the book made it a bestseller. Mercer recalls it being a true story from his childhood, and that both the authors had been little boys sharing stories from their past. Both authors most likely had the influences of the same artist and styles. Little girls. After attending many school functions across the country, Mercer was questioned on why he never wrote any stories about little girls or African Americans. He decided to give these topics a try. He began doodling, and before he knew it, Liza Lou and the Yeller Belly Swamp was born. Once the book was released, he received a lot of grief. Many couldn't understand how a man from rural Arkansas could write about something he knew nothing about. Once he had moved to Hawaii, though, he became a minority and found no room for racial conflict. Inspiration. Mercer says there are only 6 original stories in the entire universe. Everything after that is a spin-off. He admits he has even taken off of his own stuff. His stories are based on his childhood experiences, so he will take an event and doodle for about a week, and before he knows it, the story has come to life. Mercer finds inspiration in some of his favorite artists such as Rembrandt and Arthur Rackham. Little Critters. Just for You was the first book in the Little Critters series. Mercer had taken it to his previous editor, and they were not interested in another silly story about animals. He took the book to Golden Press, who loved the book, and published it in 1975. The second title of the series, Just Me and My Dad, was released 2 years later in 1977. While Mercer is probably best known for his Little Critters series, he also has a few other series such as Little Monsters and A Boy, a Dog, and a Frog. Technology. Mercer has published over 300 books in his lifetime. In the 1980s, he was one of the first authors to embrace technology. He was never a big fan of waiting for the paint to dry on his storyboards. He now creates all of his books solely on his computer. He also has apps, videos, and other educational interactive media accessible through his company, Big Tuna, and their website, littlecritters.com. Having fun. While many of Mercer's books tell stories and teach lessons, it was never his intention to preach to the choir. He was just trying to help children out with his own experiences. He simply wishes to entertain his readers. Mercer credits his success through the generations with his memory. He feels that he is just better at remembering his childhood than most. I used the official Little Critter website to get some insight on Mercer Mayer from Mercer Mayer himself. He wrote the small bio about himself on this page. I also used the website to look at some of the new games and apps that he has created. I used this author's profile to gather more in-depth information about Mercer Mayer. This profile gave specifics such as the name of the high school that he graduated from and the name of the hotel that he and his mother were commissioned to decorate. Even though I gathered most of my information from other sources, it was great to be able to use specifics and validate my other information. The first part and second part of this blog were where I gathered most of my information for this project. It was very informal, and I believe that Streetman was able to capture the playful spirit of Mercer Mayer. While there were not very many specifics such as locations, it was full of helpful information about his humble beginnings and how he struggled to find his place in the world of children's books. The second part of this blog helped with the history of many of his less familiar books. The information provided for his book, titled Liza Lou and the Yeller Belly Swamp, were some things that I were not able to find in any of the other biographical resources. I also found that Streetman included useful information about his companies and shared the link to the Little Critter website.